You've probably been told like 100 times that you just need to create quality content in order to grow your personal brand. But let's be real, no one actually breaks down exactly what quality content is, and it just leaves you confused, stuck, and you don't even know what to do. Most people fall in one of the two extremes when it comes to what quality content really is. One half, they over prioritize production quality, they get the best equipment, the best lighting, the best cameras, and that by looking professional, that's the key to growing their personal brand. On the other hand, we have people who just completely ignore aesthetics. They think they can just get on camera, talk about some ideas, and their passion is going to carry them. The truth is, both matter, but not equally. So the first thing we actually have to discuss is what exactly is quality. And there's two types of quality. We have aesthetic quality and we have content quality. Aesthetic quality is basically the visual, so your visual design, everything from your fonts, your colors, your background. It's also your lighting, your mic quality, your visual quality, whether you're using an iPhone or a professional camera. The true goal of aesthetic quality is simply just to make you stand out. Just because you have a nice setup with good lighting and a good camera doesn't mean people are actually going to want to watch you. This is one of the biggest mistakes that most creators make. They think they can talk about any idea and with the fancy gear that somehow it's going to connect and land with people. But if you're not talking about anything interesting, it doesn't matter about your aesthetic quality, which ties into the second type of quality, which is content quality. And when I say content, I don't mean like the overall content piece. When I talk about content, I mean the ideas, your storytelling, your passion, your knowledge, the actual content that you are talking about within your video. The purpose of content quality is simply to make it worth watching. This is why you see hundreds of creators that just have an iPhone and they just talk to camera. There's no special lighting or design, but how they talk and the ideas that they actually talk about are actually interesting and people actually want to listen. But the downfall when you only focus on content quality is we simply won't remember who you are when we scroll in the feed. It might be a really good idea and we might be captivated, but if you look like everyone else that just films on an iPhone, most people aren't going to remember who you are. So if you're wondering which type of quality that you should be focusing on, I'm going to walk this through with you. So we have a couple of creators here. We have Mylene's Mind, we have Kara Crafts, we have Devin Jatho, and Tom Nosk. The reason why I want to bring up these creators is because most people see the final polished version, the ones on the right, when they have their aesthetic quality already perfected. But what they don't see is the years that they put in to increasing their content quality. Take this for example. Mylene's Mind, if you look at one of her oldest videos, she's still talking about very similar things that she's actually talking about now. But if you even look at it visually, you probably are not going to remember who she is. You might watch this reel and feel like it's a really good idea and you might really connect with it. But the second you scroll past, you probably have no idea where to find her ever again. So that's why as she grew, she realized she needed to come up with an aesthetic quality as well so that people could actually remember her. And that's when she created the Art of Unlearning. I remember coming across the Art of Unlearning multiple times. And then when I actually wanted to find out more about the creator, I actually just looked up the Art of Unlearning because I didn't even know her name. And it wasn't just the sentence of the Art of Unlearning. It's the fact that she actually designed this in a way that imprinted into my mind and actually made me remember the Art of Unlearning. And if you look at Kara Craft, some of the early reels, it just looks like any other girl's reel. No matter what she's talking about, I'm probably not going to remember her. But as she grew, she decided to really hone in on her aesthetic quality, choosing a very specific font, and even the way her reels are edited, or even showing her brand logo every single time. It's imprinting that into my mind that every time I see this logo, I'm always going to relate it back to her, or her editing style. This goes the same with Devin Jatho. If you look at his old videos, he's still talking about really good ideas. And if I came across this and someone was giving me more tips on how to grow my personal brand, there's no part of me that's going to remember who this person is. And that's why over time he developed his visual style, including the purple as part of his brand, even using high-level edits to actually showcase exactly what he's talking about in his video. By him visually showing what he's talking about, it's going to separate himself from everyone else who's just going to talk about it and just show some sort of basic text. And even with Tom Nosk, he was already at a level with his videography that his earlier videos already had some level of aesthetic quality. But even then, he still worked on creating a visual aesthetic. Now that we see his face with this warm and soft tone, we have this feeling that we need to stop and actually listen to what he's saying, because he usually shares some wisdom and shifts our perspectives. The thing is, all of these creators don't just focus on one or the other, they actually work on both. They know that both aesthetic quality and content quality is actually both important at the same time. But if you look at the progression of all these creators, they always start with content quality first. They build themselves up with storytelling, ideas, and gather as much information and perfect their craft so that they can level up into branding themselves and actually making them actually stand out. And this is no different from any personal brand that grows on YouTube too. Everyone usually starts off with any sort of camera, whatever they can use to start creating content. And so over time, they can actually work on their unique aesthetic so that they can brand themselves and stand out by putting the effort to actually present yourself in the best way possible and just investing in the overall quality just to show that you're serious about this. Not just another kid who gets pick up their camera and start talking. This is the path for every creator, and that's why we need to change the conversation to and not or. Now, both things should be happening at the same time. But if you're feeling stuck, I would always recommend that 70% of the time you work on your content quality, working on getting better ideas, working on your storytelling, and learning how you're structuring and formatting every piece of content to keep the audience engaged in whatever story you're telling them. And the other 30% of the time is to slowly increase your aesthetic quality as you go along. This means slowly getting a new camera, better audio quality, improving on your lighting, improving on your visual aesthetic. Start thinking about the fonts and colors that you're using within your thumbnail design, because these aesthetic pieces is what's going to make your brand overall memorable. And the reason why I say aesthetic quality is actually just as important nowadays, because imagine back in the day when everyone just first started creating clothing. It would be the most basic colors of clothing. If everyone could create a white shirt, no one really cared. It's like just the fact that we have clothing and we have a white shirt, we'll take what we can get. But over time, when it becomes easier to create clothing, humans will get creative and start stylizing what they're putting onto the shirt. This is where different graphics, designs, logos go onto the shirt. And again, this aesthetic quality is what people actually buy into now. Because everyone is abundant in choices of who they want to consume, if you're just going to be a plain shirt just like everyone else, you're giving the audience no reason to actually choose you over someone else. But if you develop an aesthetic, a world, something that's going to make someone get a little bit more intrigued than every other piece of clothing out there, that's when they'll choose your piece of clothing. If you think about YouTube back in the day, there was only a few limited amount of people putting that out into the market. And whatever was out there, we just consumed. We didn't really care about the quality. Even if people were uploading a 360p video, we were just interested in what the story was telling us. But now that we have so much choices, we're not going to pick a 360p video. So you're probably asking yourself, how do I actually improve my aesthetic quality? The first thing you have to understand is aesthetic quality is not just about making things look nice. It's not about being flashy or over polished. It's so much more than that. It's about being intentional about how you present yourself and your message. Aesthetic quality doesn't define if your content is valuable, but it does influence how people perceive it. Leveling up your aesthetic quality is just like designing your front cover of your book. I know they say that don't judge a book by its cover, but that's completely false. There's a reason they pay thousands to design very specific covers. It's because they want to attract very specific people. This is the same with your content. Imagine you have a line of books, every single one of them black and white, and each of the fonts is Times New Roman. And then you have this one book that has a strong yellow. Out of all the books, we're probably going to be attracted to the yellow book just because it stands out. And this is probably what's happening with your content. You're creating just like everyone else, looking exactly the same, sounding the same, and this is where most people get it wrong. They think it's just about making it look the best. But like I mentioned, it's about how you're presenting yourself and your message. So if you want your message and how people to perceive you is to be a bit more easygoing, relaxed, natural, then probably don't have a fully curated setup like myself. You might just use natural light and have your colors be warm and a bit more natural. Yes, you can still have very good camera quality and audio quality to show your audience you're actually serious about what you do. It even comes down to choosing your fonts and your colors. Certain colors evoke certain emotions, and same with the fonts. It has some sort of emotional connection when someone looks at them. So choosing the right colors, even how your camera is placed, maybe it's a super wide angle lens, these all evoke a different emotion when someone is viewing it. These are the little details that you can work on with your aesthetic quality. If you're working on your aesthetic quality, always remember, you could have the best product in the world, but if your packaging sucks, people are probably not going to take it that seriously. But this is where we head into content quality. If you're working so much on your packaging and making everything look great, but the things that you're talking about and your actual ideas and storytelling isn't really that good, you might get someone to watch once and they probably won't come back, and it's actually worse for your brand. So instead of just focusing on what your content actually looks like, this is where you can actually work on, is it worth watching? Getting really clear on your message, the analogies that you use to help your audience understand, it's your energy and your conviction when you talk on camera, and finding new ways to connect dots in your audience's mind. By you coming up with new ideas to actually challenge your audience beliefs and going into depth with them is what's going to make it engaging for your audience, because it's actually pushing them to grow. And watch another video where they don't really change, there's no sort of emotional spark within them, jumping from video to video. By actually challenging their beliefs, the viewer actually becomes more active while watching your content. It's your ability to synthesize complex ideas in a way that's engaging, real, and valuable to your audience. This is all about the work that you do within. All the things that people don't really see. This is putting the time to get new information, studying, reading, perfecting your craft, all the work in developing yourself from within. Because without actually developing yourself and having great ideas and strong conviction in what you're talking about, there's no amount of fancy editing or crazy visuals that's going to keep the audience engaged. So these are some ways that you can work on your content quality. Making sure each piece of content is extremely clear. Not talking about 5 or 6 ideas within one piece of content. It's to focus on delivering one key idea per video, making it easier for your viewer to understand that information and actually use it. Having more depth and substance and actually sharing deeper insights into the ideas that you're talking about. Not speaking about surface level ideas that you've probably heard from another creator. Actually spend the time to dive deeper into the subject. Share your personal experiences or your unique perspectives on each subject. By doing that, this is what's going to make your content irreplaceable, because not everyone's going to have that unique perspective that you're going to have. So actually being able to use your personal stories and your unique perspectives and actually storytell it in a way that's going to make it easy for the audience to understand and actually relate it back to them. Not just sharing the outcome, but actually sharing the struggle and the transformation, so the audience can actually picture themselves and connect themselves to the story and your idea. Actually being brave enough to share the things that didn't work is going to make you way more human and that people could actually connect to them. It could be asking deeper questions or challenging your audience's beliefs. There's always this video that pops in my head when it comes to storytelling and relatability. It didn't require a fancy camera, great lighting. All it did was highlight a very specific moment that most of us can relate to. Working on your content quality is understanding these ideas and actually being able to share that and storytell that in a way that's actually going to feel good for the audience. Like that video, he didn't even talk about the situation. It was just simply a visual representation that we all understand. So if you're serious about actually working on your content quality, you would realize by now that both are very important. Remember that your aesthetic quality is the front cover attracting them to your page. Being able to build that emotional connection whenever they see you. This is only going to get more and more important as we head into the future. But always remember that this is not going to keep them around. It's only to introduce them into your ecosystem. What's going to keep people around is your content quality. This is why some of the most successful creators literally just put a camera down and talk into the camera without any fancy editing and still somehow make it. It's because they spent the time developing themselves and the ideas that they really believe in. Being able to jump on camera, speak about things authentically and with conviction. So remember, if you haven't developed your ideas, your thoughts, and your perspectives, there's no amount of cameras, lighting, editing that's ever going to save you, because your aesthetic quality is only made for them to pick up your book, but your content quality is what's going to keep them reading till the end.